Hi, happy Thanksgiving. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the true story of the Pilgrims and the wars that followed and its impact on American history. Today's lunch order is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Vladimir Putin said that the Ukrainian war is going global, and the Biden administration really left Trump with a dumpster fire as they left office. From about 1600 to about 1650, England was in a constant state of agitation, nearing civil war. The monarchy, which was obviously called the Royalists, uh, wanted to govern the country as it has always been run by a hereditary monarchy. And the King of England, Charles I, was determined to preserve his throne against the revolt of Puritans, who later became the Pilgrims, who wanted to take the Protestant Revolution that was on the continent and move it into England. And their concept was a simple church, not one with pomp and circumstance, and one based on the principles of Martin Luther and John Calvin on the continent. In the early years of the 17th century, the conflict between the Royalists and the Puritans, also called the Royalists and the Roundheads, which was how they looked with their clothing, with their caps on, was really the start of the English Civil War, and then a factor in the American Revolution, and then the key factor in the American Civil War. And the connection among them is not always readily recognized. As the 17th century got underway, the Royalists, the followers of the king in England, began to feel very insecure because the Protestants, whose revolution had swept the continent, wanted to bring their revolution to England and oppose the high church that was back then called the Anglican Church, and in the US was called the Episcopalian Church. The English Civil War began at the end of the 17th century as the revolution of the Protestant Reformation that has swept Scandinavia, the Netherlands, and parts of France and much of Germany spread to England. And the Royalists, who supported the monarchy and supported the Anglican Church, that was the official Church of England, were fearful of the rising power of the Puritans, the Protestants, who were largely followers of John Calvin, the leader of the Calvinist revolution in Europe. In 1607, the Royalists began to fear the Puritans and began to fear that there would be violence and that they would be the objects of violence. Bear in mind that under the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and Mary, Bloody Mary before that, there were numerous executions if people disagreed over religion. And the fears of the Royalists, otherwise called the Cavaliers, was not unfounded. So in 1607, a bunch of them left England and sailed for the US and settled in Jamestown, Virginia. And originally there was a failed settlement, then one that succeeded. But that settlement was the first ongoing settlement in America. At the same time, Charles I, the King of England, was consolidating his power and had moved without the consent of Parliament to set up an army to suppress the Puritans. The warfare between the Puritans and the Cavaliers, the Anglicans, persisted during the 1630s and 1640s and culminated in the military defeat of the Royalists and the execution of King Charles I in 1649. That execution, which marked the final victory of the Puritans led by Oliver Cromwell, who was a great general, against the Royalists, otherwise known as the Cavaliers, was a key element in British history, the only time in history that the king was deposed and executed. The reaction against his execution and the outcome of the Civil War was fierce and immediate throughout England. and the Puritans decided that they too had better leave and clear out and flee to the United States, which didn't exist then, flee to America. And in 1640, they became the Pilgrims, who left England and settled in the Massachusetts Bay Colony on Plymouth Rock. So America was founded really in two installments. The first with the Royalists, following the king, who left in 1607 and set up the Jamestown colony in Virginia. And the second wave was in 1640, when the Pilgrims fled England and set up a Protestant settlement in Plymouth Bay, Massachusetts. Those two strands became the basis of America, the one Royalist and the other Reform, Calvinist, and called the Roundheads. They never actually fought each other, but they developed independently. The Royalists in the Virginia area, respecting tradition, respecting the crown, and wanting reform in their religion, and the Puritans based in Massachusetts, who did not want the king, did not want the Royalists, and wanted the Puritan Revolution with its simplicity and lack of aristocracy imported into America. Let 150 years pass, and when the colonists, largely based in Massachusetts, demanded reform and then ultimately independence from Britain, America was split and we really had an American Civil War to match the old English Civil War of the Royalists against the Patriots. And the Patriots were largely based in Massachusetts, with the legacy of the Pilgrims remained. They also existed in Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson, George Washington led the revolution, but their leadership was impelled in part by the vigor and the aggressiveness of the Puritans from Massachusetts. Fast forward then another 100 years to the American Civil War. The British colonists, the aristocrats, the royalists, the cavaliers, who settled in Jamestown, had very different values and ultimately a very different economy than the Puritans, Protestants, Roundheads, Pilgrims, who settled in Massachusetts and spread throughout the North. The southern was dominated by plantations and slaves, whereas the North had no slavery except for minor numbers of household servants, and was based on the notions of democracy and humility in religion, and ultimately small manufacturing people who led the commercial revolution that led to the Industrial Revolution. So really the same war was fought three times. One was the Puritans against the Cavaliers in 1640. The second one was the American Revolution in 1770 to 1782, which featured the Loyalists and the Patriots fighting against one another. And then finally, the American Civil War that lasted from 1861 to 1865, which featured the South against the North, with the South stemming from the Royalist elements that had founded Jamestown 150 years before. So happy Thanksgiving. Today's lunch alert is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Vladimir Putin said that the Ukrainian war is going global, and the Biden administration really left Trump with a dumpster fire as they left office, striking Russia with missiles from the United States fired from Ukraine. The rising threat of World War III could drive gold up to $2,800 by Christmas. Goldman Sachs says go for the gold in 2025. And the Wall Street Journal reported that gold is a better bet than stocks in the coming year. So call the Patriot Gold Group. The Patriot Gold Group offers no fee for life IRAs to viewers of these videos. The IRA minimums are $25,000 and $100,000 for the no fee for life IRA. So call the Patriot Gold Group and ask for the no fee for life IRA.